the administrator of the policy office here in the Early Education Division at the California Department of Education. We want to welcome everyone to our first monthly webinar of the calendar year. We've certainly gotten off to a wonderful and busy start to the year. Our director is meeting with the legislature right now on the state budget. So he's very sorry to miss all of you, but also very happy to know that we're moving forward with sharing important information with all of you today. It's been a long journey over the last year or so, and while we're not through it yet, we really want to pause and mark our milestones and pause and reflect on where we've been and where we're going. Life has looked a lot different over the last 2+ years, and we're not just getting closer to normal, but we also have state and federal administrations that are committed to building back better as we emerge from this pandemic. One highlight of the week that I want to flag for all of you is that the federal government launched a website issuing free COVID-19 home testing kits. So this comes at a time where we know that access to affordable testing is critical in preventing COVID spread and continuing the work that all of us do. So we've all made so many sacrifices, and we would not be able to get to this point without the help of every Californian working together. We really are stronger together, and we'll continue to show just how effective California can be when we're invested in making those changes together and serving our children. I also want to extend our appreciation to all of you for your grace as we've worked hard together the last year, and especially in these busy times. It's hard to remember, but also important to remember, to take a moment to have a breath, relax, and appreciate the work and effort you and your colleagues have all put forth. As I mentioned, this is our first webinar of the calendar year, and so we're looking forward to a bright year ahead with all of you. So we will be continuing to host monthly webinars as we move further into the new year, and we'll keep everyone updated on the additional webinars on our distribution list. I also want to flag that we're also hosting a separate webinar series on UPK planning and implementation. So be on the lookout for the next webinar. We had our first one last week, and we're working on getting that recording posted up to the elementary page on the CDE website. So I'll now turn it over to Alana, who will be our moderator.
Thank you, Virginia. Morning, everyone. I'm Alana Pinsler, and I'm a child development consultant in the here at the Early Education Division. Pardon me, and I'll be your moderator today to help answer your questions and to make this webinar run smoothly. We have a great team here with us today. In the policy office, we have Patricia Gonzalez, Jennifer Osalvo, Mai Tao, and Eddie Tenemoto. From the Program Quality Implementation, PQI office, we have Amy Silva, Cassandra Lewis, Monique Williams, and Nadia Gersey. From the Early Education, Nutrition, and Fiscal Services office, we have Joey Boyd, Kate Washington, Yashima Daniels, and Alan Lynch. From the Applied Data Research and Evaluation office, we have Josephine Kahn and also Jane Lynn. From the Administrative and Fiscal Service office, we have Jackie Long. I also just want to mention our fabulous Technology Service Division, who ensure that our Zoom link is live and working for each and every webinar. They also help ensure that closed captioning is available for you to utilize during this webinar. To turn that on, you can click on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. Our team is committed to being as responsive as possible, and we may not be able to answer every question. So just a reminder that our chat box is disabled, although we will share links with you there. You are unable to chat with us there. Please utilize the question and answer feature to ask us any questions. Also, do give us as much detail as possible. Example, your contract, age of students, a little bit more information so that we can give you the best quality answer possible. Back to Virginia to review the agenda for today.
Thank you so much, Alana. So as we take a look at today's meeting agenda, obviously the first thing here is welcome to all of you. So the policy office will provide an update on the various budget related items from the governor's exciting budget proposal that was released earlier this month. After that, we'll go into Assembly Bill or AB 1363 implementation, which is dealing with dual language learners. We'll also address reserve account changes. Our program quality implementation office will give some updates and reminders on the continued funding application. Oh, updates and reminders, and we'll also be discussing our continued funding application. We also have updates on the request for applications for CFPP. And finally, we'll discuss some exciting opportunities to support workforce development. And then while we'll work through questions in real time, answering any questions you put in the chat or put in the Q&A feature, we'll also revisit some questions live and visit some new questions that have come in, as well as questions we've gotten through other modes. And as we do each webinar, we'll be taking any unanswered questions and turning them into FAQs for our website. So now let's dive into the governor's proposed budget. So the California proposed 2022-23 budget does a lot to prioritize investments for young learners. So there are many proposals, especially focusing on inclusion, on both TK and state preschool, and supporting students who are dual language learners. So we're really happy to share some of those changes with you as we move forward. So starting with our next slide, which is investments in the governor's budget around universal transitional kindergarten, or UTK. So the budget is proposing $640 million to expand eligibility for TK for all children turning 5 years old between September 2nd and February 2nd, beginning 22-23. So this means that there would be an additional 2 months of children, 2 months of birthdays that would be now eligible for TK. There's also $383 million to add an educator to every TK class, which will reduce the student to adult ratios to more closely align it with state preschool, get transitional kindergarten to a 1-to-12 adult to child ratio. There's also $3.4 billion for expanded learning, which includes support for TK increases. So like I said, $3.4 billion, and this covers expanded learning rates and the expanded learning opportunities program. So that's supporting the increased rate from this year being made permanent, supporting 9 hours of programming for UTK, and supporting arts and music programming in ELOP. So moving on to state preschool investments on the governor's budget, there's $309 million proposed in the budget to increase state preschool adjustment factors to better support both students with disabilities and dual language learners. These funds will support new requirements for state preschool providers to serve at least 10% of students with disabilities, and like I said, provide additional supportive services for students that are dual language learners. Additionally, all students, there's a change proposed that would have all students in state preschool maintaining continuous eligibility for 24 months, so that's increased from 12 months. And then after all eligible 3- and 4-year-old children are served, there's a proposal that state preschool can serve eligible 2-year-old children as a last priority. So lots there. There's even more on state preschool from the inclusion side in the governor's budget. So we're really happy to see this focus on inclusion because we know how important inclusive settings are for children's learning and later growth. So there is a proposal that children with an individualized education program, or IEP, will be categorically eligible for state preschool. So we're still looking for more details on exactly what this will like, but what this probably means is that children with an IEP would not have to, would be eligible regardless of their income. So sort of a new eligibility category. There's also, as I mentioned, a proposed new requirement for state preschool to serve at least 10% of children with an IEP, similar to Head Start. And then there's $500 million to support the Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program, which funds infrastructure necessary to support general education and special education students in inclusive classrooms. So this money, because it's Proposition 98, would go to LEAs, or local education agencies. But if the current language in statute stays the same, LEAs that are partnering with community-based organizations would be prioritized for funding. So there's some pieces there around that. Finally, there's $2 million to incorporate early identification for learning disabilities into the state's preschool assessment tools. And that includes a process for follow-up by expert evaluators. So to wrap it all up, there are also investments in professional development are in the governor's budget. So as we look to the budget, there's $60 million to provide training for educators on the effective use of the assessment tools that will be developed with that $2 million we talked about on the last slide. And then additionally, there's $54.4 million to build on some multi-year investments that were included in last year's Budget Act, so in the 2021 Budget Act, to support efforts to enhance schools' ability to hire qualified teachers and substitutes. So this includes $24 million in one-time general fund to waive certain teacher examination fees, and $900,000 for the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to contract for public outreach to highlight the value and benefits of educational careers in California's pre-kindergarten through grade 12 schools. We're still looking for more details on that one, but wanted to highlight a couple, a few of those. And one thing before we move off of the budget is I just want to emphasize that what we've gotten right now is the governor's budget summary, which I can put in the chat so you can all see it if you want to in a minute. We do not have the proposed statutory changes to law yet. So we'll get that on February 1st. And I think I'm seeing some of the questions that are coming in through the Q&A. That will, we'll have more that we can say after we're seeing the proposed trailer bill. And as a reminder, these are still proposals. In order for the final budget to be the law, it has to be passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, and that typically process wraps up in June. So this is the first step on a couple-month process to determine what will be the law and budget moving forward. So I'll now pass it off to Patricia to give some updates on our Assembly Bill 1363 implementation. Patricia?
Hi, good morning. My name is Patricia Gonzalez, and I am a child development consultant with the Policy Office in the Early Education Division. I'm going to take this time to talk about the work that has gone into implementing AB 1363. Assembly Bill AB 1363 was signed by the governor on October 5th with the aim to identify and support dual language learners and achieve a more equitable system for all children, and has requirements for how California state preschool programs contractors must identify and collect data on dual language learners. Contractors will use the information collected from the Family Language Instrument and Family Language and Interest Interview to identify dual language learners enrolled in their programs. We have had great meetings with Research Constellation and work groups to gather feedback on AB 1363 with regard to the instrument and interview being developed. Under the provisions of the bill, CDE must develop a family language instrument. This will be for parent or guardian to fill out upon enrollment, and it will identify the languages the child is exposed to at home and in their community, which languages the child understands, and which languages the child can speak. CDE must also develop a family language and interest interview. The purpose of this interview is to build a relationship with families and learn about the child and their experiences with language. All children will be interviewed by the child's teacher or other designated staff, and must include at a minimum an inquiry and a discussion about the strengths and interests of the child and the language background of the child and needs for the parent or guardian or family members to support the language development of the child. Finally, the CDE is required to develop criteria for California State Preschool Program contractors to use to accurately identify dual language learners enrolled in their programs based on the information collected. Additionally, the bill requires for data to be collected about dual language learners in the preschool program. The aim of this is to use the data to improve program quality and support informed decisions to be made in regards to the allocation and use of state and program resources to better support their linguistic and developmental needs. In terms of next steps, the CDE has until March 15 of 2022 to develop a management bulletin to implement the requirements of this bill until regulations are adopted. This management bulletin will notify California State Preschool Program contractors regarding the new requirements for how contractors must identify and collect data on children that are dual language learners. And the implementation of this bill really does help us move to a more inclusive and equitable universal preschool system by identifying and respectively collecting and reporting the necessary data to better support dual language learners and address barriers to bilingual program models. Thank you, and I'll now hand things off.
Good morning. My name is Alan Lynch, and I am a manager in the recently renamed Early Education and Nutrition Fiscal Services Office, or EENFS. We have just a couple of updates and reminders today. So let's get started with some reminders about the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funding that we are currently getting out to the field. As you may recall from previous webinars, the ARPA funding will be distributed to our CSPP contractors through a few different potential streams. These include ARPA stipends, which were based on the enrollment data from March 2021, rate supplements, which we based on September 2021 enrollment data. And then finally, we have the rate increases that went into effect on January 1. Please note that the rate increases will only include ARPA funding for our non-LEA contractors. If you are an LEA, your rate increases were funded with the Proposition 98 funding. We also want to remind our contractors that the ARPA survey is a federal requirement. All contractors receiving ARPA funds must submit a survey for each site they provide preschool services. EENFS has been working with the program consultants in EED in the past few weeks in order to reach out to contractors who have not met this ARPA survey requirement and notify them of any missing data. We have seen a lot of new responses coming in for the survey, but please make sure you are responding to any inquiries from PQI or EENFS regarding the survey completion. The final ARPA-related update that I want to give today is in regards to the stipends. We have already released 2 rounds of ARPA stipends to contractors that have completed the survey, and those contractors should have received both the funding and the emails from your fiscal analyst with additional information about those payments. Based on the current timeline, contractors receiving a payment in the 3rd round should expect an email by early February, and their payment should arrive by mid-February. Just as a reminder for LEAs, your funding is sent to the county treasurer's office. So your agency will need to work with them to make sure you receive your stipend funding. And now over to Joey for some additional updates related to reserve accounts.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Good morning. My name is Joey Boyd, and I'm a fiscal analyst also with the Early Education Nutrition Fiscal Unit, and wanted to provide some quick updates regarding center-based reserves. CDE issued an email to subscribers of our email distribution list back on December 13th, titled Changes to Center-Based Reserve Accounts, informing contractors of changes in fiscal year 21-22. Effective July 1st, 2021, center-based reserve accounts holding both CDE and CDSS contracts must be split into 2 separate accounts. One reserve account for CSPP contracts and one reserve account for all other CDSS center-based contracts, which include CCTR, CMIG, and CHAN contracts. The email also covered how CDE determined the balances for contractors. We won't be covering the calculation methodology in this specific webinar, but contractors should refer back to the email to see the methodology CDE used to determine the split. For the 2 new types of reserves, balances maintained in the CSPP reserve may only be used for eligible CSPP expenditures. Balances maintained in the center-based reserve account for programs at CDSS may only be used for eligible expenditures for those programs. For those contractors with reserve accounts that had both CSPP and CDSS contracts tied to the center-based reserves at the end of fiscal 2021, in early January, fiscal analysts informed those contractors with both reserve types of their new fiscal year 21-22 beginning balances for each new reserve type. Because reserve balances can change until the audit is processed for non-LEAs or the year-end report revision deadline has passed for LEAs and community college districts, these reserve balances in fiscal year 21-22 remain preliminary. If changes do occur to the reserve balances due to an audit or revision, the assigned fiscal analyst will inform the contractor of the updated reserve balances for each type. So the last update I wanted to provide this morning pertains to the CSPP reserve account limits. As it has been in previous years, the preschool or CSPP reserve account maximum limit will remain at 15% of the sum of all CSPP MRAs tied to it. Ed Code 8336 also has been amended to remove the requirement that 10% of the reservable amount must be utilized on professional development for CSPP. Prior to the amending Ed Code 8336, only 5% was able to be utilized for general expenditures, with the remaining 10% being required to be utilized on professional development. Now back over to Early Education Division to provide Program Quality Implementation Office updates.
Thank you, Joey, and good morning, everyone. I will be providing you with a couple of updates and reminders from the Program Quality Implementation PQI Office regarding California State Preschool Program closures, including the COVID-19 related closures and non-COVID-19 emergency closures. Management Bulletin 21-11 provides directives regarding reopening, reimbursement, distance learning plans, and distance learning requirements for CSPP contractors. When a contractor is required to close even one classroom due to state or local public health orders or guidance related to the COVID-19 pandemic and specific to early education or childcare, the contractor shall submit the notification of closure due to a public health order or guidance template that is attached to Management Bulletin 21-11, along with a copy of the public or health order or guidance. Additionally, the contractor is required to offer distance learning opportunities for children who are unable to receive in-person services. As a reminder, distance learning services do not have to be offered virtually through the use of technology and should be accessible to families. Management Bulletin 21-11 describes multiple options for offering distance learning services, and the contractor should determine which method works best for them and the families that they serve. Management Bulletin 21-10 provides directives for non-COVID-19 emergency closures. These types of closures are due to circumstances beyond the contractor's control. This may include, but is not limited to, fires, floods, and earthquakes. We understand that many contractors are experiencing staffing shortages, requiring many programs to close some or all of the CSPP sites and classrooms, and that staffing shortages may or may not be related to the pandemic. This type of situation would be considered a non-COVID-19 emergency closure since the circumstances requiring the closure is beyond the contractor's control. The non-COVID-19 emergency closure approval form attached to Management Bulletin 21-10 should be submitted to the contractor's assigned regional PQI office consultant when all sites and classrooms are required to close, along with documentation of the staffing shortage and the contractor's efforts to, to obtain substitute staff to avoid such closures. Although contractors are currently only required to submit the request for approval when all of their sites and classrooms are closed, as there would be no change to the minimum days of operation, contractors should notify their assigned PQI office regional consultant of any closures via email and maintain the consultant response and any backup documentation regarding the closure for audit purposes. We understand that the COVID-19 pandemic and the Omicron variant is having a great impact on many of your programs, and we sincerely appreciate and value your dedication and commitment to the children and families you serve. The PQI office is consulting with the CDE legal team to determine appropriate additional guidance related to closures in order to best support our CSPP contractors. We will release updated guidance in the near future and appreciate your patience as we work on determining the best way forward and developing that guidance. If you have programmatic questions or in need of technical assistance related to both COVID-19 related closures and non-COVID-19 emergency closures, please contact your assigned regional PQI office consultant. For fiscal and attendance reporting related questions regarding closures, please contact your assigned EE&FS analyst. Now over to Jackie to provide updates on the fiscal year 2022-23 continued funding application and the California State Preschool Program Expansion request for applications.
Thank you, Crystal. The fiscal year 2022-23 CSPP continued funding application, CFA, was due to the CDE on December 17, 2021 by 5 p.m. Contractors who were unable to submit the CFA by this date due to timing and scheduling of board meetings for the approval of the CFA were allowed to request an extension to submit their CFA. Approved extension requests for the CFA are due to the CDE at or before 5 p.m. on January 31st, 2022. Methods for submitting the CFA are either electronically or hard copy via mail or in person. The CDE strongly encourages contractors to submit the CFA electronically. If submitting the CFA electronically, there are two options. Option 1, sign all forms with a digital signature and submit electronically, or option 2, sign all forms with a wet signature, scan the CFA package, and submit electronically. Electronic submissions of the completed CFA must be sent to the CFA at cde.ca.gov. Be sure to include the following statement in the body of the email. By submitting the attached, I certify that I am authorized to submit and approve this continued funding application, CFA, for insert CSPP contract name and vendor number, insert CSPP contractor name, intends that the CFA transaction be completed by the electronic means. All signatures and attachments are intended to be binding. For contractors submitting a hard copy of the CFA through mail or in person, ensure that all signatures are in blue ink. Please send completed and signed CFAs to Continued Funding Application, California Department of Education, Early Education Division, 1430 N Street, Suite 3410, Sacramento, California, 95814-5901. Contractors are required to update the Child Development Information System, CDMIS, as part of the CFA. As a reminder, updates to the CDMIS should occur anytime there are updates to the program information, such as site changes, program and/or executive director information, facility license changes, etc. If you have any questions and/or concerns, or inquiring about your CFA submission, please email us at cfa@cde.ca.gov. Next slide, please. The 2021-22 State Budget Act authorized $131 million in California State Preschool Program, CSPP, expansion funding. This funding will be available to local education agencies, which includes school districts, county offices of education, community colleges, and directed funded charter schools. The CSPP expansion funding will be available to both existing CSPP LEA contractors, as well as LEAs who do not currently hold a CSPP contract with the department. Funds can be used for both part day / part year and full day / full year CSPP. While the CSPP expansion funding is only available for LEA applicants, the LEA can propose to subcontract the CSPP services through community-based organizations and also propose to provide services through a family childcare home education network, also known as FCCHEN. The CDE anticipates releasing the CSPP expansion request for application, RFA, in the near future, and LEA applicants will have 6 weeks to submit the application. Shortly following the release of this RFA, the CDE will host a webinar for LEAs that are interested in applying for expansion funding. This webinar will provide detailed information on the availability of CSPP expansion funding and the requirements for the application process and content. Both the CSPP RFA and webinar announcement will be released through the CDE EED email distribution list. For questions regarding the CSPP expansion funding RFA, please email the RFA inbox at cspp.rfa@cde.ca.gov. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Hello again, everyone. We at CDE are pleased to announce the upcoming release of the Early Education Teacher Development Grant Program. We invite qualifying local education agencies, LEAs, which include charter schools, school districts, and county offices of education to apply for the funding. And this is a part of our funding opportunities to support our workforce development. The Early Education Teacher Development Grant Program is designed to be built upon and align with the allocation portion of the California Pre-Kindergarten Planning and Implementation Grant Program. This competitive grant has two purposes: to increase the number of highly qualified teachers available to serve in CSPP and TK, and to provide and elevate CSPP, TK, and K kindergarten teachers training in specific competencies, which include instruction in inclusive classrooms, culturally responsive instruction, supporting dual language learners, enhancing social emotional learning, and implementing trauma healing, informed and restorative practices, and mitigating implicit biases for eliminating exclusionary discipline. There is a mandatory letter of intent, an LOI, for those who wish to apply for the grant, and we've extended that LOI deadline submission date. Now, in light of the challenges that are currently being posed by the Omicron variant of the coronavirus and impacts that it's having on LEAs who may wish to submit this LOI to apply for the grant program, the CD has decided to extend the deadline for the LOI to Wednesday, February 2nd by 5 p.m. All LOIs must be submitted to the following email: upkworforceRFA@cde.ca.gov. That email again is upkworkforceRFA@cde.ca.gov. And we do sincerely appreciate the LEAs that have submitted their LOIs already. If you have, there's no need to resubmit. If you do wish to update something within your previously submitted LOI, please reach out to the grant program team via the aforementioned email. I'll put that in the chat while we're talking. The RFA is expected to release in winter 2022, and a technical assistance webinar will follow that release. And please ensure that you're signed up for the P3 listserv. That is the Preschool to 3 initiative within the CDE and our branch of CDE. I'll put that chat in how you can subscribe to that listserv. We are very excited to see how LEAs are going to use these funds to support the workforce and the teachers within their region. And beyond this funding opportunity, the CD, in partnership with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, or CTC, developed the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Teacher Pipeline Compendium. This compendium lists funding resources not only at CDE, but with other partner agencies as well. This compendium goes deeper and showcases more than we can share within the short time together this morning. So I'm going to place the link for the compendium in there now. I do recommend that you bookmark it. And also do keep in mind that this compendium was released in December of last year, And some of the grants now have their official names, as well as now also have specific funding profile pages that were not then available in December. Next slide, please. I'd also like to give an update on the California Preschool Learning Foundations. There has been a lot of talk surrounding the update of those foundations, or the PLF, as we like to say. So here's a few highlights to share. In the budget, there was 10 million provided in one-time funds to update the PLFs by January 2024. That will incorporate recent research in the field, include best practices to support dual language learners, and inclusion of children with disabilities. This work also includes the development of curriculum and educator resources to implement those standards, as well as the adaptation of the desired results developmental profile, the DRDP, and that will include direct assessment of literacy and math. The CDE participates in weekly meetings to keep this moving forward with the contractor WestEd, and we're preparing the beginning stages of the work, which includes reviewing the current PLFs with subject matter experts, and then convening with focus and interest groups that'll provide feedback for the use of the PLF and how DRDPs are currently utilized to inform classroom instructions. Updating the PLF will enhance enlightenment with preschool through kindergarten through grade 2 standards, and will be a cornerstone in the successful implementation of 2 distinct but interconnected initiatives recently launched by CDE, UPK, and the P3 alignment that I just sort of mentioned previously. It's good to note that the intent of the CDE, that TK curriculum, which a lot of folks are thinking about, developed, will be aligned with these updated PLFs that are developed by CDE. Next slide. And now we are going to be spending some time to answer your questions. There were a lot of questions regarding AB 1363, so I'd like to invite Virginia back, and perhaps Mai, if you can show that slide once again. I think that was slide 11, and then Virginia, if you, and Patricia, if either of you can come back and share some highlights again.
Sure, thanks. So really, we saw a lot of questions here, so I just thought that given the questions in the chat, coming back and re-looking at this might be beneficial to folks. So I want to just clarify a couple of things. So this bill was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor last year. What this bill does is it re-looks at how dual language learners are identified. And so CDE, as you can see from the slide, and as Patricia discussed, CDE is required to develop a language instrument, a language and interest interview, and other criteria for contractors to use to accurately identify dual language learners. And in addition to that instrument and the interview. The instrument is upon enrollment. The interview is sort of, we're still working on guidance. So the main thing that you need to know for now is that we wanted to flag that this was coming down the pipes. I put the link to the bill in the chat so you can take a look at it yourself. We're working on developing both the instrument and the interview, as well as those other criteria and additional data. We are required to develop by law a management bulletin to release more information about this on or before March 15th. But we didn't want this to come out of the blue for folks. We wanted to give folks a heads up. So this is effectively us saying, FYI, this bill passed. We are working at CDE on implementing it. Here's what the law says. You can read the law more detailed if you want. I'm happy to answer more specific questions about individual aspects of the law. But just wanting to clarify that we will be releasing additional guidance with those tools. We're working internally and with some research experts about kind of what would make the most sense. And then with all of our management bulletins, we make sure that we're talking both to folks that work with the field, so on a regular basis, our program quality implementation folks, as well as additional contractors, a small group, to make sure that it's going to be understandable and easy for you all to follow when we do release it. Of course, when we release it, we'll also brief you about it at that point. So this is really a heads up that something is coming, and we'll be talking more about it in the months to come. So one other thing for AB 1363 I want to flag is that there was a question in the chat about how this integrates or doesn't integrate with what's in K-12. And what's used in TK as a result. I just want to emphasize that 1363, and you'll see this if you click on that link and scroll down, I think it's the second section of the bill or sort of toward the end of the bill, you'll see very specific things that were required to include in the language instrument and interview. So these are things specific to state preschool. So for example, the instrument has to include at a minimum which languages the child is exposed to in the child's home and community environment, which languages the child understands, and which languages the child is able to speak. And then that interview, which is that conversation, which will have to be conducted by the child's teacher or another designated staff, has to include at a minimum an inquiry and discussion into the strengths and interests of the child, the language background of the child, and then the needs of parents, guardians, and or family members of the child to support that child's language and development. Wanting to just rehash that a little bit, the things that I said had to be included are written in section 3 of the bill that I linked you to. So if you want more information about the law, you can click on that bill link and scroll down to section 3, which is where this piece is. All right, I'm going to stop there.
I'll give Virginia a break. So there is one question, and I can answer this question. It's regarding the early education teacher development grant for the LOI. The question is, we'd like to partner with other school districts, and would all school districts need to submit a separate LOI? The answer is no. The LOI needs to be submitted by the LEA that will be holding the grant funds, and they can partner with other LEAs. It's also really encouraged coming in as a consortium. And you can come in as a consortium with other LEAs within your region. You can also come in as a consortium and apply on behalf of funding for providers that are in your areas in CBOs of CSVP and Head Starts as well. And if there's any other questions regarding the grant, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'd also like to, I'm going to call Virginia again, to come back and just kind of reiterate, there were some questions when Virginia was first speaking about the governor's budget, but asking for specifics on that. I'd like Virginia to come back and just sort of reiterate that these are still proposals and these are not law.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alana. We saw a lot of really interesting and thoughtful questions from many of you about the governor's budget. People wanting to know which proposals, for example, how 24-month eligibility applies to part-day state preschool, whether children can be served without regard to income in full-day state preschool if they have an IEP. Lots of questions about how do these proposals apply to part-day versus full-day age categories versus other age categories. And I think there are some, so I'll reiterate what we have a good sense of and what we don't have a good sense of. So we do, based on our understanding from reading the governor's budget summary, which I put in the chat, and from conversations, we do, our current understanding is that all children with IEPs would be able to be served in state preschool regardless of income if they meet those age requirements and they have an IEP either as in part day or full day. So that we do have, based on the language that has been used in the summary, that does seem like that is what's being proposed. We don't have a lot of details on how things like 24-month eligibility apply to part day and full day. And some of those other ones, the exact nature, the amount of the adjustment factors, how those will be applied. So as we get into some of those more nittier, grittier details about the budget, what happens on January 10th is that the governor releases this budget summary, and then the governor's team works between January 10 and February 1st on the more concrete details of the proposals in terms of how is the law getting amended. So those more concrete details on the proposals have not been released yet. So that's why we're sort of in this sort of more unsatisfying position of having to say, well, we can't really tell you yet because we haven't seen those details. But just wanting to urge you that if you have a specific opinion on the way it should be, can be on the lookout for that when it's released. We'll certainly be talking about that on our webinar and sharing the links on our webinar for where you can go look at that yourself. So we urge you all to be as engaged as possible in this process because you all know what's good for programs. And I put things to a couple of people in the chat about reaching out to legislative staff and attending budget hearings and giving public comment. These are opportunities for the public to share their perspectives, reaching out to your representatives. A couple other things, I see a question about family fees. That's in the same category. We don't know what's happening on family fees yet. There is not a proposal in the governor's budget to continue to waive family fees, but that doesn't mean that, you know, like I said, this is a proposal that the governor is making. The legislature may decide that they want to continue waiving family fees, and that's a conversation they'll have with the governor. There's also a question about the future of the hold harmless for the next budget year. That's in the same category. It's not a proposal in the governor's budget, but you know, if that's something that is really important to contractors, we urge you to share that perspective with your elected representative and give that public comment, like I was saying. So hopefully that covers a lot of the different proposal questions on the, you know, is this included, is that included? But if we missed anything, we can come back and do it a little bit more.
Perfect. Thank you, Virginia. I'd like to call on Alan. There was some questions about contractors who had submitted their ARPA survey, and they just wanted to know how they knew that their ARPA survey was in receipt.
Yeah, thanks, Alana. So we have been reaching out to contractors who we have not yet received their ARPA surveys for. They can, I guess, go ahead and email me and I'll get them in touch with the right staff. We can put my email address in the chat if you do have questions about whether or not we have received all of your responses for your ARPA survey. I'm not the one who's actually sending those emails or making those calls, but I do have the current list. So I can at least check that first before providing you with the resources you need to make sure you have completed the survey. There is also an ARPA survey inbox that you can direct your inquiries to, so I'll put that in the chat as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alan. There was a question about going back to the early education teacher development grant about the community colleges. Are they considered an LEA? According to the statute, no. LEAs are considered county offices of education, school districts, and charter schools. So we're going to be following statute on that. And I see Virginia unmuted herself.
And this is a complicated area because those of you that operate California state preschool programs know from the Early Education Act, for the purposes of that section of code, community colleges are considered LEAs. So just wanting to say yes, in some cases they are, and in some cases they aren't. There are different definitions of LEAs that apply at different times. So just wanting to, yes, acknowledge that that's kind of, we always have to look at which section of code we're operating in and which definition of an LEA applies in that specific section. So everything Alana just said is true, and wanting to add some context if what you said sounded confusing, that's why you might be confused.
Yes, it is. And there was also a question about the next in the alignment of P3 webinars, a series. There was one that was scheduled for the 27th of this month. That one was canceled. It was going to be focused more on workforce and teacher pipeline building. That's now going to be added to the next series in the webinar, which is on February 17th. So there is no webinar happening. And this was just mostly once again, there's a lot happening in LEAs. And we respect your time, and we want to make sure that when you join us for webinars like this, it's because we have great information to share with you, and we want it to be a positive space. So there is no webinar, P3 webinar on Thursday, January 27th. There is a P3 webinar on February 17th. Let's look at another few questions as we're running low. There were some questions about the ARPA survey and reporting on fiscal reports. I invite any one of our fiscal members to come on and see if they have anything to add to that conversation.
Good morning, Alana. So as far as reporting for the ARPA stipends, that information is included in the emails that are being sent out as the stipends are being released. We can definitely reach out to your fiscal analyst for that information. At a high level, we have added a new reporting line on the report forms. It is the restricted income ARPA line. You'll be reporting your ARPA funding, your ARPA stipends that you spend on this line as you are reporting your expenses. But you can definitely reach out again to your fiscal analyst if you have more specific questions or need additional detail. We do have that information in an email that's been going out as stipends are sent.
Perfect, thank you. And there was some follow-up questions about the P3 webinar that I just mentioned. I invite you to look back in the chat when I put in there about subscribing to the P3 listserv. That listserv is going to give you the email and the registration for that. And it should be somewhere in the afternoon, but in case that changes, I want to just make sure that you're subscribed to the listserv versus just hearing us speak at the moment in case something comes up and changes. So I'm going to put that back in the chat as well. Perfect. Oh, it looks like there's still some folks who are confused. Unfortunately for the grant, community colleges are not eligible to apply. However, for those LEAs who are eligible, we do recommend joining in a consortium where they can join with a community college. But community colleges themselves are not eligible for the grant. They can join with another LEA, and the LEA can bring them in under that consortia. Let's see, we have a few more moments. It looks like we've got a lot of clarification questions coming in on the chat. We do appreciate that. Let's see. How about I let our Q&A people work on answering all of our open questions. And we're going to present the resources slide next. It's okay to not listen to me at the moment, but just still get your questions in. Our team is still answering those questions. This is not quite the end. We still have a few more minutes. So while I'm highlighting these resources for you, do get in your last minute questions for our team to answer. Our EED COVID-19 guidance webpage is where webinar slides such as this webinar, this is where they're going to be posted, including transcripts, our management bulletins, and our frequently asked questions. That can be found at https://www.cde.ca.gov/SP/sp/RE/ELCD-COVID-19.ASP. You can also submit questions to our emergency email box at eedemergency@cde.ca.gov. To find your assigned PQI Office Regional Consultant, please visit https://www.cda.ca.gov/SP/CI/assignments.asp. Per usual, our consultants are most easily reached by email. However, you can still call 322-6233 during business hours, where you can reach the consultant of the day. I'm going to invite Virginia to close us out as our Q&As are still around.
Thank you so much, Alana, and for everyone for participating. We've done our best to answer as many questions as we can, so we hope this was helpful to you all. As Alana mentioned, this webinar is recorded and will be posted on our website. So I want to just say thank you to everyone for being here, to everyone that put this webinar together, to our entire early ed division and early education nutrition fiscal services team. Thank you for your tireless commitment to doing your best. We've all risen to the occasion so many times in the last year. And so I'm so proud to be a colleague with all of the CDE staff and all of you as we do great work to support children and families. Thank you so much again. One final thank you as we kick off our new year. All of the things that you do in the field are real inspirations to us at the state level and motivate us every day. So thank you, thank you, thank you for everything. And we will look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.